A very pleasant good afternoon and welcome one and all to APNU AFC Afternoon Live with yours truly, Randolph Critchlow. We want to thank those persons joining us internationally, joining us in the region, and right here in Guyana. It is the 16th of March 2021. We're happy to have you all joining us as we say good afternoon to every single one joining us all over. It has been 376 days since the March 2nd regional and general elections of 2020, and Guyana still does not have credible results from those elections. It's been 223 days since this fraudulent administration would have been installed, and we are continuing every day to give you the detail and their continued prosecution and prosecution of those persons who are aligned with the APNU AFC. 223 days of the confusion powder, 223 days of the fraudulent administration as they release the rat on this country. Again, we want to welcome you to the show. We want to say thank you very much from wherever you're joining us on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon, the 16th of March 2021. My name is Randolph Critchlow. Good afternoon to you. Don Clark, those persons joining us from New Jersey. Thank you very much for tuning in to the live. Remember, share the live stream. Let your friends and family know that the credible and valid information is right here at APNU AFC. We're bringing it to you. Coming to us live from Georgetown, Guyana. We're streaming, of course, on Facebook. We're also on YouTube for those persons who prefer to look at us on that platform. Let your friends and family know that we're on YouTube. Just type in APNU AFC on YouTube and you will get the live stream. Thank you very much again. Coming to us, those persons who are looking from New York, New Jersey, the Bronx, our Caribbean friends and family, welcome, good afternoon, and welcome. Wonderful Tuesday afternoon. We're about to share some information with you. We're about to unpack some of the issues that would have gone down over the past 24 hours in our country. And we will be bringing that to you live. We want to say thanks again. Always thankful. You know the song says gratitude is a must. Coffee. Yes, it says gratitude is a must. So we like to pay our gratitude, say our gratitude to you that you're always locked and loaded right here at APNU AFC TV. Right, the afternoon rush is here. Lyndon is in the house. Miss King, thank you very much for joining us. Right, let's see what people are worried about today. Let's do what you can do in your comment as we wait for more of our friends and family to join. Let us know what are the major issues for you today. What is bothering to you today? We like to do that at the beginning of the show. Let us know what are the major issues. Right, Miss Sam, we will be doing that very soon. Not to worry. We will be having measures so that we can, you can support the work that we're doing here very soon. We're working on that. Let us know what is bothering you today. What are the major issues of concern before we get into our program this afternoon? Let us know. Listening from BK, welcome to the show. Antigua, thank you very much for tuning in. We know we have such a large Guyanese contingent there in Antigua. We know you're always there. Right, somebody's asking about the nurses in Linden Hospital update. We'll try and get that for you. Right, good afternoon to everyone. I see a question. Why is the AFC falling apart? I don't think that they are falling apart. I think what the person is referring to there is that resignation, not necessarily resignation, but we see Michael Leonard in the news today stepping away from politics, and a number of other persons decide to step away from politics. These things are normal in political parties. All around the world, you see persons making decisions to move away from politics or move away from a political party, so to speak. We can't look at that as a sign of anything is falling apart. But these are normal course of actions and normal things that happen with political parties, right? It was the persons moving away from the PPP and other parties that got you the formation of the AFC, if my memory serves me correctly. right? People like Moses Nagamutu and Kemraj Ramjatan, they're all part of the PPP. So, things happen, people move, people have difference of opinions, and they move on. So there's no love lost in that. That is politics. That's the nature of the game. Right. Welcome again. I think we are ready to go with our topics for today. We want to say thanks again. I always like to say thanks. It's a good word. It's a good word. Folks, we're going to start with some witch hunting news today. Our comrade, our friend that you know and love, Mr. Ganesh Maipal, Member of Parliament, has been relieved of his post at the Ministry, formerly Ministry of Communities, now Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. Of course, that ministry run by Mr. Dharamlal. We see Ganesh Maipal, and let us ensure that you understand that Mr. Maipal was on the permanent structure. He wasn't a contract employee. He was someone on the permanent structure employed by the Public Service Commission. Just to make it clear. This is where we are, folks. And, at this point in time, as we continue to see what is happening, right? As we continue to see what is happening. Yes, Miss Sam, yes. And let's just go back to that, what I was talking before. Let's put a pause here on the Ganesh story before we dig deep into this. Right? As one of our viewers would have pointed out, as we see people moving from party and going away from politics, and persons switching sides, and people doing their own thing, breaking off and forming their own party. That's how we got the AFC, right? And if your history is correct, you know that is how the PNC was formed. Right? Check your history, you would know that when Border moved away from the PPP, that's how we got it. That's how we got the PNC. Right? So be not alarmed when you see people moving from party or pulling away from politics. These are normal things that happen. Normal things that happen. So I just wanted to point that out to persons. But let us continue on this witch hunting saga that we see playing out here with Ganesh Maipal. And I want people to understand these employed public servants who are employed by the Public Service Commission. It's not very easy to get rid of them, It's not as easy as getting rid of a contract worker. Mr. Ganesh Maipal, I am sure, will take legal action. If he isn't taking legal action, I would suggest that he takes legal action against the ministry. Because to be terminated without your case being heard by the Commission's Disciplinary Tribunal Committee, then something is fishy there. Something is wrong. Note that it was Irfan Ali who said that we wouldn't be witch hunting. We would not be witch hunting. And it's quite interesting. If we can cast our minds back a few months ago, when one Ejil targeted MP Amanzo Walton Desir, who was General Counsel for the Civil Aviation Authority. Right? claiming that she's a member of parliament and this and all manner of things that he was claiming. And at the same time, during that same period, they hired the deputy speaker. The deputy speaker to be advised on aviation. You know, the JLP man, the Amerindian man. At the same time, firing Amanza Walton Desir. Folks, we are living in nothing but a dictatorship. We said it yesterday when we saw them trying through BPAT to muzzle Gordon Mosley. For some reason, Gordon Mosley have even went to a BPAT press conference. But again, the witch hunting continues, right? And I again would say that Mr. Maipol has a case to take legal action against the ministry. This is the same ministry that has not paid those persons who were let go in September their gratuity. Those contract workers who were due their gratuity, they were not paid. This is the same ministry, former Ministry of Communities, now being run by the tin pot dictator, like I referred to him, Darmlal, who seems to be under instructions from his political master to cause as much confusion in the local government system as possible. This is what we see. Ganesh Maipal. Well, we'll continue to highlight these issues. I want to jump right into our main discussion for this afternoon, the 16th of March 2021. Yesterday, folks, I shared with you this photograph. I shared with you a photograph displaying some bell peppers in the supermarket. That's what I shared with you. Let me see if I can pull it up again. Right. And I asked what in the world is happening in our country. This is quite alarming. Bell peppers being sold for almost $1,791, equivalent to over $8 US. And I want to dig deep into what we see happening right before our eyes in our country as it relates to the economy, as it relates to economics. And to discuss this, I have none other than an eminent economic mind, former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan, and I want to welcome him. Minister, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Randy. Good afternoon to viewers.
Right, good afternoon to you, and I'm happy to have you here to try and unpack some of the economics of what is happening and we see happening slowly in front of our eyes. Maybe not as slowly as some believe, but we see these alarming signs, Minister. I just showed a picture there of some bell peppers being sold for some unbelievable prices in our supermarkets. And this, of course, many persons point out that this is a symbol or it's symbolic of something else happening in our country. Do you believe so? And if so, what exactly are we seeing playing out here?
Okay, Randy, well, thanks for me and posing the question. I'll make a couple of observations where this is concerned. We're over a year into COVID, and during that time, both demand and supply have been interrupted. Demand from the standpoint that a number of people lost their jobs. Many countries closed their economies significantly, partially, and so forth. And as a result, production cutbacks was the order of the day in a number of these countries. Now, what you're seeing with the vaccine and other successful measures that have been put in place, economies are opening back again, some faster than others. And so, money saved during the pandemic and monies disbursed, for example, in the COVID relief that is being given out in the United States and so forth, is driving demand for basic food items. Because, you know, under Maslow's theory of needs, the first one that you satisfy is really the one that will make you sustain life, and that's food, you know, and shelter and so on. So that is driving up the demand for these products. Production cannot keep pace because you cannot. Vegetables are seasonal. Vegetables and fruits are seasonal items, and therefore it cannot be the production, the supply of it cannot be had increased dramatically in such a short pace of time, and so the price mechanism comes into place. And so what you may be seeing at the moment is partly reflecting the fact that right now demand is outstripping supply. There's a shortage of supply. And as you know, the kind of peppers that you showed on your screen just now, these are imported peppers. So in a sense, we are also importing the inflation that you see coming out of those developed countries. The second observation is that we have what we call an enclave sector, that is the petroleum sector. That is a very high income sector. It's attracting high income labor, particularly from overseas. These people are bringing their tastes and you know what they're accustomed to and so on, the foods that they're accustomed to and so on. They're accustomed to consuming these kinds of foods, the pizzas and the jalapeno peppers and whatever else. And so the demand for these imports is rising and rising significantly. There's no way a store like Massey will bring such items if they're not being sold. And so to the extent that they're actually bringing it and selling it at the price at which they're selling it, which is close to $9 for one pepper, and the fact that it's being sold out means that there's a demand for this product. And that demand, as I indicated to you, is largely being fueled by that enclave sector called the petroleum sector. That is a sector that where you're earning the foreign currency, but you're equally spending it back in high price housing and large imports. If you look on the balance of payment, imports is rising dramatically, and it's rising in response to the demands of the sector itself, including the labor force that is employed in that. The third aspect I wish to indicate at this stage is that we hear a lot of platitudes about avoiding the Dutch disease and resource curse and so on. But we don't see policies being engaged to make certain that we get a larger share of the pie coming out of the petroleum sector, particularly in the agricultural sector. When you have imports such as bell peppers coming in here and being sold out with ease, competing rather unfairly with local peppers and so on, what incentive does it give to the local farmers? Because I've seen peppers grown locally, probably not as huge as the peppers that we import, but I think with the right policies and so on, we could get farmers engaged. When I went and opened the Massey store in the one in Turkine, there next to the movie tongue, I specifically admonished the owners of that place to engage with farmers and so that they can get a ready and fresh supply of Guyanese vegetables. I go there and there are one or two items in there, but it's still, the store is still dominated by these imports. These imports are going to cost us heavily in terms of foreign currency, and I wouldn't be surprised if come down the road you see we have an issue with foreign currency, notwithstanding the fact that we have a national fund. And finally, I indicate to you that you are going to see the effects on the domestic economy of this enclave sector. Already you're seeing rising demand for wages. There's a demand for wages in the public service. There's a demand for wages in the in Gaisuko, right? Even though they're running a huge deficit, there's a demand there for wages. Housing prices are skyrocketing and going through the roof and so forth. And all of this is as a result largely on account of the petroleum sector. And in the short term, there will be no easing of this problem. Down the road, with policies in place and so forth, we could expect maybe prices to be a bit more competitive. But in certain areas like housing and so on, for a good while, those prices are going to be less than competitive.
Yeah. Um, Minister, if I can unpack a few things that I heard there. You spoke about the need for local products to find their way into these supermarkets. Is that going to help deal with those crazy prices that we're seeing?
Well, it will help. It has to be packaged. It has to be packaged. As I said, you have to have the right policies to promote these local products in the context of local content and so forth. I mean, if you and you also use your tax policy to ensure that imports don't compete unfairly with local products, and that there is no dumping here, right? Dumping where they flood the market with products that are normally far less than in the home country, and then they wipe out domestic production. So one has to be wary of those. You have to stop copying and go out there and help farmers to produce in the areas where food is needed. If it's bell peppers, then let us do bell peppers. If it's quinoa, which is a pretty good product for diabetics and so on, let us do that. In other words, then, we have to do a revolution in agriculture to avoid the Dutch disease decimating our agricultural sector while the petroleum sector runs off with the money.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned was this idea of the employment and wages and the pressures that will be put on certain sectors because of maybe the attractive wages that may be seen in the oil sector. And we see the Gaisuko workers pressuring and protesting for that wages issue to be sorted out. How is it that we deal with that? Because I do remember in the budget debates, this call for the increase in private sector wages specifically. But how do you balance that as you are in the position of the finance minister? How do you balance that? Because of course you're going to have this competition between government wages and private sector wages. Now we see the oil sector putting pressure on people, and maybe you don't want that to become more attractive than what you were offering in the public sector. So how do you balance something like that?
Well, look, it's not. You're gonna have to have very short-term policies, and then you're gonna have to have medium and long-term policies. I'm a fierce critic of the way the 2020 and the 2021 budgets were presented. They were presented in a way which suggested that they were going to take off a whole range of indirect taxes. Now, the VAT, for example, is an indirect tax. You only pay a VAT if you consume the good or the service. Okay? So to the ordinary person, that is neither here nor there, because many of the products from which VAT was taken off, they really don't consume. And in any case, you take water, for example. We had removed temporarily the VAT on water in 2020. The government came in 2020 and took it to its permanent stage while claiming that they removed VAT on water. But the reality is a large number of Guyanese were not paying VAT on water simply because the mechanism we had in place, they did not consume as much water. It's only after you consume a certain amount of water then is when the VAT kicked in. So jumping around and saying that how you remove VAT from water and water should be cheaper to them is totally irrelevant. If you're not paying the VAT when the VAT is removed, how does that help you? In the meanwhile, The last time wages were increased, the last time wages were increased was in 2019, December, backdated to January of 2019. So you're running almost into 2 years with this salary, while not understanding the inflationary figures that have been put out. Inflation is an index, okay? And in that index, certain prices rise faster than other prices. And as you can see, food prices and construction building material prices have been rising faster than the other prices. Food prices are going to hit the large number of Guyanese who are considered to be at or below the poverty line. Significant number of Guyanese. So if you earn even a so-called decent salary of 100,000 Guyana dollars, by the time you adjust for taxes and so on, you take home maybe roughly 90,000. With rising prices of housing, rising prices of transportation, rising prices for gas, and rising prices for food, you are worse off today than you were in 2019 if the survey were to be done. It will show that you are worse off today, notwithstanding the huge number of taxes that they had removed. Those taxes, as I maintain for the most part, are totally irrelevant to the ordinary Guyanese. What Guyanese need, two things. One is for those taxes, for most part, to remain where they were, and for the government to redistribute the collected taxes to those in need, number one. And number two, there needs to be an income policy that progressively takes income to a level that is sustainable in the context of meeting the basic needs of the ordinary citizen, you know. And if you don't have those policies in place, then you're going to end up with mumbo jumbo, removal of taxes here, there, and everywhere, only to find yourself a year from now or so forth, where you in a bind because you may have to put back on certain taxes because of the huge deficit that you're carrying. You cannot carry the kind of deficit that we have been carrying in 2020 and now in 2021. Those two cannot last forever. And that in itself may also fuel both the inflation and the demand. You know, I'll give another example. Today, they signed contract of 13 point something billion in the housing sector, right? And that's not over a 4-year or 5-year period. That is for this year alone. Now, everybody knows right away, right now, the shortage of building materials, sand, stone, cement, okay? You don't have a forestry policy in place as yet. Now, the demand that a 13 point something billion investment in the housing sector for this year alone that will place on the housing sector and the forestry sector, you haven't, it will not be able to supply the lumber and boards and so forth that you need. And therefore, you're going to see a significant rise in wood products, which will give rise now to imports. You know, they may relax even the duties on the pine that we had put in place, that we had got CARICOM to successfully put in place. They may even be forced to relax that as a result of this nonsense that they're going in. So at the end of the day, you're going to find that well-intentioned goals and objectives are going to fall well short because this thing has been done in a very partial.
Yeah. And I'm happy that you brought some light to that because it speaks to medium and long-term planning. And as we talk about planning for the future, especially with economics, I want to ask you about a comment that I heard recently by Mr. Timothy Jonas. You know, I'm paraphrasing here, and he said basically on the Globe Span program that government shouldn't be in the business of business. And, you know, he sees privatization as the answer for Guyana's woes. You know, whether it be sugar, whether it be whatever, but government should come out of the business of business. Everybody on the program didn't agree with him, including Christopher Ram. Do you agree with such a statement, though?
Such a statement as wild when it was forced made many years ago. The proof of the pudding is always in the eating. While it may be suggested that private sector in certain areas may have a better grasp of business than, say, the government, to there's no convincing argument anywhere in the world, including the United States, that government should come out of the business of business altogether. You recall under the Obama administration that the government had to step in and bail out billions of dollars, bail out to private sector manufacturers of cars in the United States. Okay? In a number of places in Europe, France, and all these places, government still retain portions of commercial businesses. You see, when you take these things and you from various, most of these things come out of developed countries, economists and commentators, and you try to bring them wholesale into developing countries like ours, is then you see the fallacy, the folly and the fallacy of such arguments. When you look at all the territories that were colonies, that were given independence, what was the state of these countries at the time of independence? We don't need a long chapter and verse right now for me to indicate what was their state. Just look at Guyana at the time of independence, 1966. You really honestly feel that the government could have satisfied the rising demand of its domestic population for services, goods, and all these things that they were denied for centuries, that we could have depended on private business people to actually provide those goods and services with the speed with which it was being asked for? I think a better proposition will be, while government should carefully select the businesses it wishes to be in, those businesses should be allowed to run in a business-like manner, similar to what BBC is run in England, another bastion of capitalism. Right? BBC is state-owned, but it's run as a business. So we have to. So you if you want to stay in Ghana, then all the patronage and the political football and everything else that is Gaisuko, you will need to finish with that and let Gaisuko run as a business. And then you get Gaisuko paying you dividends and profits and taxes, and these can be used to develop the wider economy. Failing which, government must be out of that business. Okay? But it is unfair to say that government should be out of every single business. Where government intends to remain in a business, the business must run on a commercial basis, not a social welfare basis, a commercial basis. And in that regard, the business that comes closest to what I'm speaking is Guy Oil. Even though heavy political influence is now back into Guy Oil, and where they're telling Guy Oil how to, what policy must put in place for pricing, how much profit margin they can get, and all these different stories. When you do that, you don't need a board. You don't need a board, because the board becomes superfluous if the minister is going to constantly get in the business of Guy Oil and tell what to do. Guy Oil has to compete with Rubis, that has to compete with any other number of gas station owners, plus they have to compete with the smugglers, and I would advise the government to stay out of the business of Guy Oil for the most part. Let Guy Oil do its work in the best way it can, and let it bring in higher and higher dividends, and these can be used to buttress your tax collections, so that you can meet the rising demands for wages and better housing and better healthcare and better education, better roads and road maintenance and so forth.
Minister, I want to see if I get what you're suggesting there, that a formula for particularly Gaisuko. So you're suggesting a formula where the government leaves Gaisuko to be run as a business by a board, right?
Correct.
And it pays the government as it gets the profits.
Yes, it pays government profits, taxes, and so forth. But right now, you're running Gaisuko because you say it's historical contribution to the economy. Well, you know, you go if we went down that road, bauxite has an historical contribution, gold has a historical, and pretty soon all the products that have historical contribution will be sucking from an economy that becomes bloodless, to be quite honest, because you know Gaisuko, for whatever they're trying to run up and say X estate IFLOT reach its target and so on. Those targets are nothing compared to the targets those estates had in the 1970s, the 1980s, 1990s, and so on. Those targets aren't anything to really shout about. The reality is that Gaisuko, the formula that we were going to use, is the business formula. You retain 3 estates, you try to make them profitable and so on, and you sell off the other 4. The other 4, you get some money, you develop the communities in which these estates were sold off. The government gets back some of the money for the huge transfers it had made to Gaisuko over the many years, and it's a win-win. And meanwhile, 3 estates will be still there, producing sugar, but this time on a business like manner, so that they don't have to depend on the government anymore for any transfers. They will be looking at their markets, targeting their markets, running costs that are in a relationship with the prices that they get and so forth. But what you are doing right now, that you're claiming that people making a target of 200 tons of sugar this week and so on, is just to fool the people, because it's not telling you the massive amount of money you continue to transfer into a commodity that is more or less dead.
Yeah. Before you go, Minister, I want to tackle a particular thing. I know the economic students who were part or were looking at the program, they want to hear your take on the PPP's approach. Through their budgets, you can see through their policies and the plans and the programs that they have taken a starkly different approach to macroeconomic planning. And you know, where the APNU AFC would have paid a lot of focus on human social development, we see the PPP leaning or necessarily using more of a capitalist, if I can paint it with that brush, a capitalist approach. And how does this augur for the citizens of the country moving forward? Your views on that?
Well, I'm not sure I quite understand the question. If you can find out a bit more, I'm not sure I understand.
So so there are talks in many corners of the society that the PPP's approach to the macroeconomic planning leans on a lot of infrastructure development, whether it be hotels, whether it be this, whether it be that, and in some ways neglects a lot of the social programs that we saw under the APNU AFC. Your views on that, if you actually think that is so?
Well, I can't. I wouldn't say that that approach lends itself to any major criticism, simply because when you look at our program, we had a massive infrastructural development program in all sectors laid out through the 10-year decade of the development in all sectors. You have to have infrastructural development that is part of productivity improvement and is part of welfare improvement. So there's no doubt, for example, the opening of the Letem airport, that is a project of the coalition government.
Yes.
We had our plan for Letem being a hub, all right, for that part. And attracting more flights from South America and so on, and making that whole place strong. And so we have an integrated approach to developing Letem, for example. Runway for us, then we had terminal. All these monies we had got already from the CDB and so on. Then we have hydro, hydro because you need electricity to enable manufacturing and other activities to develop. Solar, we had also had a solar program. So that was an integrated program that was building, that was going to result in improvement in welfare, better education and health facilities, roads. You see the fancy roads they have there now with the only the second roundabout in the country and so on. Uh, Factories that will employ labor, particularly domestic labor in the towns and so forth. Hotels and tourism, a brisk tourism industry will develop. So we had an all-embracing approach to development. We also had one where we were very adamant of linking the coast with the hinterland. Therefore, our
Yes.
roads program, our airports program, our airstrips programs, our river program, our telecommunications program, these were all linked together. So it's not only about building 10 fancy hotels, which I doubt whether, you know, because notwithstanding the oil industry here, I don't see we having any basis of building 10 high-end that they're claiming. But
Yeah.
it is my concern view that that will not happen. But so it's not only just about building hotels and even just building roads. It's how these relate to productivity improvement, um, value improvement, income improvement, and ultimately welfare improvement.
Yes, I asked a question because I wanted to get this final point. Do you believe that the wealth gap in the country is a problem, and you believe that this
Of
idea of
course,
equity?
I mean, without even asking the question, the wealth gap is a problem. We cannot make definitive conclusions because no studies have been done in recent time. But anecdotally, you can see that gap appears to be widening. Right? The haves are getting richer and the have-nots are getting poorer. I mean, you just have to look at that. Two budgets have come out, and none of these budgets targeted an income increase to the average worker. None of these budgets targeted an adjustment in the income tax threshold. None of these budgets targeted an adjustment into the marginal rates of income tax. But all of these budgets targeted significant removals of taxes to the business class, whether it be removal of income tax on fee-paying schools or fee-paying hospitals and so forth. And all of this done with no contract signed between the government and these private sector agencies about availability of services, improvement of services, quality of services, and prices for these services. So you ultimately just give away. You give away income that was coming to the government that it was using to redirect into other developmental activities. You have redirected this income into private hands and hoping that some kind of trickle down, it will have a trickle down effect to the consumers of the products or the goods. Trickle down economics went out with Reagan in the 1970s, But to think that you could give away these goodies and hoping that every private sector individual will be altruistic is as false as thinking that yesterday will come back tomorrow. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so that is what is wrong with the approach that is being used by the existing government. And I believe when it starts to go wrong, it starts to unravel, they're going to have a very difficult task of putting it back together. Simply because when you taxes are very sticky. If you take them off, it's very difficult to put them back on as a means of getting back up when the income expenditure gap begins to widen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is where I think they were very, very, very. I think they were very, very misguided. You know, you don't rush into doing what they had done in the 2020 and 2021 budget. You were going to see, this is not doomsday. You're going to see, this is going to be simple economics. You're going to see the result of that later on in this year. especially where inflation, maybe pressures on the foreign exchange rate, and so on will come by.
Minister Jordan, very, very insightful. We want to thank you very much. Of course, you're one of the most beloved ministers because you affected the public servants' pocket. So, and you, of course, you can look back on that 77% increase of our minimum wage and speak with pride as the things that one part of the progress made under the APNU AFC. I'll give you a final word before we go.
Yes, Randy, you mentioned that now that I'm driving myself and so on, I'm amazed the number of people who signal to me. I was stopped just the other day by a policeman. I thought I was going to ask him what it is that I was doing wrong. He said he recognized me as a former minister, and we did a good job, and he wanted to thank me for the wage increases that we think and looking out for police. I get the same thing with the nurses, and so on, and teachers, which is a good feeling, and it takes away, it washes away all the negative that the government had been trying to do in terms of impugning my character and my integrity and so forth. So those things warm your heart, and so on, and makes you feel that your public service was worth it. So I'm all for. I still maintain a faithful servant of public service, and I don't know if called upon I will do again, but I would say I will offer my services in that capacity, so to say. But
Gotcha.
thank you very much.
And we want to thank you very much for that service to former Minister Jordan. And I'm happy that we were able to shed some light on some of these topics that we discussed today. Thank you very much for coming on the program this afternoon.
Okay, thank you much.
Right. Folks, if you're now joining us, we are chatting today with former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan, on a number of economic issues. Of course, we started that segment by showing you this particular image that we showed you yesterday of bell peppers sold in our supermarkets for almost $1,700. That sparked a conversation on what is happening. Why are we seeing these sudden rise in prices? What is playing out in our country? Minister Jordan bringing some light there and some of the possible economic things that may be happening in our country. We have to, of course, be wary of the Dutch disease. That, like he said, measures need to be put in place. We have a lot of persons coming into our countries who are accustomed paying certain prices. We just need to look at Barbados. And because, of course, their economy is run on tourism, and those foreigners who go there, they can afford certain things. It's often very difficult for locals to pay the same prices, and we probably slipping slowly into that. So we need to be very careful. We need to ensure that our local products can compete in the market. They, of course, will attract a better price because it doesn't have to be imported all the way from overseas, and so hence we have to charge these fancy prices on them. So we have to think about our agriculture sector. We have to think about how we are producing our own so that we don't have to pay these prices in our markets. Talking there on a number of issues with Minister Jordan. Folks, we want to switch our attention now to two other issues before we go. We have about 10 more minutes on the program, but I want to bring to you quickly in this segment we call One More Thing. No, before we go to one more thing, let's just deal with this issue. Earlier today, we got some reports of works being done, road works being done in enterprise, and of course, we're happy when we hear works being done and communities are being developed. We are very, very happy to hear those things. So we sent our cameras out there on the East Coast, and we got some words and thoughts from not only the persons in the community of enterprise where the works are being done, road works, drainage works, really nicing up the community of enterprise there. That's very lovely. Unfortunately, the bordering villages, we didn't see lots of work happening there. So let me just bring some of the thoughts of the residents you, right? I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to impugn. I don't want to say that, works are being done here and not being done there. But we observe the works are being done in Enterprise. But we went to check the next community. Whether it be Bachelor Adventure, whether it be, community two villages down. Now, what exactly is happening? And why is it this specific community is being targeted and works being done there? But let's just take some comments from the citizens of the bordering communities. Let's come back. Let me...
In Beirut.
The last crash in Beirut.
And the road very...
So right now we're going to take... this is Beirut. This is the village right next to Enterprise where we see all the works being done. Let's hear from some of the citizens.
But if somebody sick take in, nobody can come out. No car can come in. What is nature of the road? Plus the place want draining. You got entrance block. It's only this rain, the rain just come off the road, the water just come off this road here. Yesterday, there, but 2 days now. Since the rain fall, the place flood. The yard flooding. If you notice all the bush them in the yard, watch all the backyard, this water was settling. It was drainage. The road I mean good. When you watch the road itself, watch how deep. It's an excavator come. But 3 days ago, I asked the man just to full up the hole. Just to break this bumpy and push it back here, and push it back here. Just, yes, sir, that's big. It's a big hole, you can't walk here. What is this piece of dam here, so? Them two dams there is the entrance to the...
Right, so we're still in Beirut on the East Coast. Let's come back. Those persons who are now joining us.
Now the road in the community are in very poor state, and nobody tried to pay no attention in this community with no development. They have government outreaches coming in the different communities. The only outreach they send to us is police outreach. No minister have never come to this community to see what's going on in this community. And if we're going to compare other communities with this community, we are tightly forgotten in this community. Our roads, our bridges, look at our trenches, nobody play heed. I am saying as a citizen, I'm 72 years old, 70 years old. And any government goes into office is not for some of the people, it's for all the people, because we are all Guyanese. I am saying we have sufficient resource in this country that all Guyanese can benefit from it, not one. You go to different other villages, at neighboring village, they pitch in the roads. Minister Ezil was in there, and he tell about over Enterprise, and the Enterprise people said that the road have not but bitumen, and he tell the contractors to put more bitumen on the roads, and just cross streets and alleyways, the bitumen in Enterprise. You could take your media, you could go over there with the camera and see how they're doing these things. They are very biased, and it must stop because we are all Guyanese, we should be treated in fairly. I want to walk around the community a little and see what we're going
So this is the type.
Right. So we're continuing. We're still in the community that is neighboring Enterprise.
Vehicles go in sometimes. Let's say, for instance, you're in a taxi and you try to navigate here. The taxi is literally leaning. It's literally leaning like if it wants to fall over, and that is because of the slope between the high part of the road and the low part of the road. Right?
And this has been in the state for how long
and
now?
This has been in this state for 10 years. Without exaggeration.
How many persons living in this community?
We have about 6,000 or more. We have about 6,000 or more.
Okay. Look at this. That's the state of the road.
Right. So we're seeing residents of the communities that accompany, border Enterprise. As you heard the elderly woman said, the communities that border neighboring them, they have the roads doing. So we took our cameras there, and this is what we saw. right? Roads being done. The community to the left got roads and potholes. The community to the right, roads and with potholes. But in Enterprise, this is what we have. So, you know, the citizens aren't lying. They're not complaining for no reason. They're sitting in their house and then they're seeing these works being done in their neighboring communities, and they're wondering what is happening with them. What is happening with them? Why can't they get roads too? On the East Coast. And again, these are the things that we are highlighting. This is the government that should be for everybody. This is the government that claim that they are for the entire country and they are for everyone. So questions need to be asked. Questions need to be asked as to when is it that those neighboring communities will get their roads done? Because Enterprise is getting lots of work done. When? Why is it that this one community, which is being bordered by two other communities, they seem to be getting this special treatment? These are the questions that we need to ask. Right? These are the questions we need to ask. If we go to this, we see the people of this community, which is right next to Enterprise, showing us the state of the road. That is where we are. That's where we are, folks. So we'll continue to keep our eyes on this particular issue. We'll continue to keep our eyes on this particular issue and bring you more information as we get them. I'm not going to answer the question. I'm here to ask the questions. Why is it that this government that claims that they're for everyone, discriminating? Why are persons in the neighboring villages have to, why do they have to complain? Because they're hearing the trucks and they're seeing the work being done right in the neighborhood next to them. These are the questions that we need to ask. Folks, as we wind down time, we almost on program time. Let's get ready for one more thing. This afternoon, in one more thing, guys. Yesterday we ended the show on a very good note. We spoke about the rapper St. John, who won 2 Grammy Awards, Guyanese American rapper. But this afternoon, in one more thing, it's quite depressing. Quite depressing. We are still waiting. The country is still waiting. We saw a report recently that preliminary inquiry into the charges against 2 of the men accused of the murders of the Henry Cousin is set to begin. Henry Cousins is set to begin on the 3rd of May. Right? 3rd of May. These, of course, are the 2 men that they picked up. These, of course, are the 2 men who they said confessed to the murders. These, of course, are the 2 men who said that they don't know about any murder. Their family said they don't know about anything. They said they don't know about it. But the police say that they confessed. The Henry family is still protesting and asking for justice. Yesterday we saw the family members of Harry Singh protesting CID, asking for justice. The country is still waiting. for the Guyana Police Force and the Minister of Home Affairs to act with some sort of backbone and integrity. These are why questions have to be asked about who is being protected. These are why questions need to be asked. This is where we are, folks, and this is my one more thing for this afternoon. The country, and I always say this, whenever I speak about the Henry Boys and Harry Singh, I say that history will not judge us well. History will not judge us well. When we look back at the actions of the Guyana Police Force, and we look back at the actions of those in the Ministry of Home Affairs, history will not be kind to us. Folks, it's sad that we have to end on this note this afternoon. But we want to thank you very much for being a part of our program. We hope that you continue working together for national development. We hope that you protect your friends and family against COVID-19. You know you have to do what you have to do. Join us again tomorrow at 5:30 for Afternoon Rush with yours truly. We thank those persons who joined us online. Always lovely to have you. Even those PPP trolls who are bent on spewing hate, who are bent on spewing lewd and obnoxious comments. We're happy that you're here so that at least you can go and report the credible and valid information that you got. My name is Randolph Critchlow. We want to say thank you. Join Cher Duncan at 8 p.m. tonight for In the Ring. And until I see you again tomorrow, let's continue to work for national development. Do enjoy the rest of your day.